I want to say thank you for taking the time to see me because I never felt so low and I just need someone to talk to.
This is a place of comfort. Please, begin.
Okay, I guess I'll start from the beginning. When I was 8, this group of men came to my house, all wearing blue cloaks, and they came into my house in the middle of the night, and they took my parents. I don't know where they took them, and I didn't see them for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I kind of just lived on my own at home. And one day they came to me, and they were wearing blue cloaks, and they said, "Stevie, come with us." And my name's not even Stevie. I don't know who they thought I was. They bring me, and they took me to this strange pit in the ground, and it was full of magma and lava, and they said, "This is what you've done." And they just leapt into it. And then, so after that, I stumbled my way back home. It was to be 13, 14 hours. I finally made my way back home, and a couple days later, child services came. They took me, and they brought me to my grandparents' house. And I lived there until I was about 16, but the problem is around 13, puberty hit me pretty hard, and the thing was I was really lonely, and my grandmother, we had this pool, and every summer she would go out back and she would go for a dip in the pool, and she wore this 2-piece red bikini. I'll never forget this, and just this unbelievable amount of pubic hair, and it fanned out. It almost looked like Seabiscuit's mane just pouring out the sides of her bikini bottom. And after she'd go for a dip, she'd go over to the carrot garden. They're very organic, health-oriented people. They grew all their food at home. And she would bend over to harvest these carrots, and as she would tug and pull on the carrots, her heaving breasts would just sway like giant pendulums, almost like it was like they're keeping the beat to like a Skrillex song. It was like, whoop! And I locked eyes with those. And in that moment, I achieved my first erection.
Please, continue.
Okay, well, like I said, I lived there until I was about 16. And around that time, there's a lot of stress in my life. I mean, there's always been a lot of stress, so I started eating a lot more. What I used to do is I would take 2 quarts of Haagen-Dazs, and I'd melt it down to a paste, and I would pour it into a bag of jalapeno Cheetos, and I would just eat that, and I would do that upwards of 9 times a day. And because of that, I developed a very womanly figure. I had grown bosoms.
Bosoms, yes. Problem most adolescent boys of your weight can acquire bosoms. The chunkiness. But it's not your fault. Tell me, what happened then?
Well, when I got these bosoms, I was around 16, like I said, and I was entering high school, and that's where boys really started to take notice of girls' bosoms. So I was so desperate for attention that I began to flaunt my bosoms, and I got the attention I was looking for, but it ended up being not so great. They would call me Hooters Howard. My last name's Howard, Stevie Howard, Hooters Howard. And they would pinch and grab at my boy breasts. And it just got to the point where I felt like I had no control over my body and over the way I was being treated. So I developed this sick obsession with taking feral cats home. And I starved them nearly to the point of death. And right before they died, I would go to the butcher and I would buy a large chunk of bull penis, and I would slice off small pieces and feed them just enough that they stayed alive, because I felt, I may not be in control myself, but these feral starving cats, I'm the one feeding them the bull dick, and if it wasn't for this, they would die. And I felt power, and it was for the first time in my life I felt power.
Starving cats. Disturbing. Sick. You are fucking sick. Last time you had talked about the voices, Stevie. Please tell me about the voices.
Like I said, there was a lot of voices at the time because what happened was a lot of the times the bull penis would expire, it would become rancid before I could feed it to the cats. So I began investing a lot in turpentine and ammonia and different cleaning products, and just the scent of starving cats, rancid bull penis, ammonia, turpentine, all these things coming together was toxic. It was killing my brain, and because of this I developed these insane voices in my head. And then tell me to do these reckless things in my body. I began cutting my thighs. I started doing this drug called crocodile, and it's such a self-destructive drug. It is a flesh-eating. It eats your flesh away, and because of this, I had large gaping wounds on my thighs and my buttocks. And what I would do when I'd be alone, these voices would say, "Give it a shot. Just slide them in there," and I would slide my fingers slowly into the wounds, and I became obsessed with this, and I would just do it all the time, and it was horrible. And I developed a severe case of the rickets, and I was unable to walk, and I became bow-legged and pigeon-toed all at once. It was a horrible, horrible experience. It took years of rehab to gain the ability to walk again. But the worst part was I almost miss it. I miss the sensation of sliding my fingers so deep into my wounds.
And what about Jaleel White, Stevie? Does he still follow you around?
Jaleel White is a big problem in my life. Many know him as the primetime hit Steve Urkel, but I know him as a monster. Jaleel White, he was following me. I know he was. Everyone calls me crazy, but I know he was there. I would see him in the subway. I would see him at Walgreens and Shoppers when I was trying to get my prescriptions. He was there. Jaleel was always there. And he wanted to kill me. And I know he did. And the voices were still there. And they said, "Stevie, the only way to stop Jaleel White is genital mutilation." So I went home and I got my favorite butcher knife, and I started off with just a simple circumcision, and I thought maybe this is fine. Maybe this lack of filthy foreskin will get rid of Jaleel White. But it didn't. Jaleel was still there. He was outside my window. So I took it the rest of the way, and I took her off at the halfway point, and he was gone for a couple days, I guess, and I saw him again a few days later at the park, and then the only thing now is just I have to kill myself. I have to do it. It's the only way I can stop Jaleel. I have to end my life.
Do it.